Hi students, this is Manoj Kumar Nalla, Assistant Professor of Botany, Government Degree College, Peddapalli. Today we are discussing about cell wall. Cell wall is the important organelle of the plant cell. What is the composition of cell? So cell wall was first observed and named simply as a wall by Robert Hooke in 1665 because the first cell discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665, he observed cork cells of the plant. Then the cork cells are the dead cells. Just he observed hollow space inside of the cell. At the same time, he observed cell wall. So in 1804, Carl Rudolph and J.H.F. Link proved that cells have independent cell walls. According to Rudolph and Link, every cell have independent cell wall. A cell wall is structural layer that surrounding some types of cells situated outside the cell membrane. It can be tough, flexible, and rigid, which provides cell with both structural support and protection. On the basis of chemical composition of cell wall, there are three types of cell wall. One is the bacterial cell wall, second one is the fungi cell wall, third one is the plant cell wall. So bacterial cell wall is the different to fungal and plant cell walls. So bacterial cell wall is made of the mucopeptides, muramic acids plus protein, that is called mucopeptide. Muco means it's a one type of carbohydrate. So carbohydrate linked with peptine, muramic acid plus peptine called mucopeptide. At the same time, fungal cell wall made with chitin. Chitin also one type of carbohydrate. So the fungal cell wall made with chitin. At the same time, plant cell wall made of the cellulose. Cellulose is the largest carbohydrate polymer in living cells. So cellulose made with the glucose polymers. The plant cell wall made up of mainly cellulose and also other chemical substance such as hemicellulose, pectin, suberin, lignin. These are all the things including in the plant cell composition. Plant cell wall. A cell wall is found in plants, algae, fungi, bacteria and some archaea. Animal and protozoa do not have cell walls. The main difference is the plant cell, animal cell is the cell wall absent or present. So plant cells possess cell wall, animal cells absent cell wall. So the main difference of the plants and animals is the cell wall present or absent. In plants, cell wall is the present. In animals, the cell wall is the absent. In plant, cell wall is located outside of the cell membrane and provides these cells with structural support and protection and also acts as the filtering mechanism. Mainly, where the cell wall is located in plant cell? The cell wall is outside of the cell membrane. So it gives a mechanical support of the cell, at the same time structural support. Because of the cell wall, the cell shape determined in the plants. At the same time, filtering mechanism, the materials, the substances outside to the inside of the cell through the cell wall. The cell wall having semi-permeable nature. Semi-permeable nature means some important materials it allows to enter to the cell. Some harmful material it doesn't allows to the inside of the cell. It is the semi-permeable character of the cell wall. A major function of the cell wall is act as the pressure vessel, preventing over expansion when water enters the cell. So the major function is the pressure vessel. It acts as the pressure wells, preventing over the expansion when the water overflow into the cell. The structure of cell wall determines the architecture and function of plant cell. So, the structure cell wall determines the architecture and function of the plant cells. Plant cell architecture function determine the cell wall structure. So, a typical plant cell wall composed 3 to 4 layers. Every plant cell composed 3 to 4 layers that are formed sequentially from outside to inside as follows. One is the middle lamella, second one is the primary wall, third one is the secondary wall. Occasionally we can see in tertiary wall also. So you observe here the picture. So the middle one is the middle lamella. The middle lamella connected two cells cell wall. So that is the middle lamella is the connect linking of the two cells. So the middle lamella connected two primary cell walls. So the middle lamella formed cells connected with turns as the tissues. So that is the middle lamella. So inside of the middle lamella, that is the primary cell wall. Inside of the primary cell wall, we can see secondary cell wall. Inside of the secondary wall, occasionally, sometimes very matured cells. We can see also tertiary cell wall. Cell wall is completely by 3-4 layers. This is the middle lamella, primary cells, secondary primary wall, secondary wall composed 3 layers, S1, S2, S3. So primary wall only 1 layer, but the secondary wall is contained 3 layers. The outermost is the called S1 layer, secondary layer 1. The middle layer is the secondary layer of the secondary wall. The inner layer is the secondary layer of S3. So this is the secondary layer. So we can discuss the layers functions of the cell wall. First, middle lamella. So it is present between the two adjacent cells. So it is present between the two adjacent the cell. It is situated outside of the primary cell wall. So always the middle lamella presents two various cells primary cell walls. So at the same time, the middle lamella made with calcium and magnesium pectates. So here you can see. So these are the cell, these are the cell. The block area is the middle lamella. The middle lamella connected one cell to other cell. One cell primary wall to other cell primary wall. It connected both the primary walls of the various cells. It acts as cement which holds the adjacent cell together. So how the cement holds the bricks, at the same time the middle lamella holds and tightly packed one cell to the other cells. The help of the middle lamella, the cells are holding each to other. So second one is the primary cell wall, primary cell wall. It is formed after the middle lamella. So it is formed after the middle lamella. At the time of cell division, the first middle lamella formed. After middle lamella formed, inside of the middle lamella, the primary cell wall was forming. So that's why we said after the middle lamella. A thin, flexible and extensible layer. Primary cell wall is the very thin, very flexible and extensible layer. It is capable of growth and expansion. So the primary wall is the very primary. Here the cell very small, it having the primary wall. The cell growing, at the same time the primary cell wall is also growing. So it has some characters, growth and expansion. The backbone of primary cell wall is formed by the cellulose fibers. Mostly all the primary cell walls are composed or made with cellulose fibrils. The matrix is composed of semicellulose, pectin compounds, lipid, structural proteins. So the primary cell wall matrix composed with hemicellulose, pectin and lipid structural protein. These cellulose fibril included in this matrix and formed primary cell wall. At the same time, secondary cell wall, it is extremely rigid and provides strength. The primary cell wall is very flexible, but the secondary cell wall is very rigid and provides strength. After the cell matured, the secondary wall is forming. The secondary wall is giving to the strength the cell. At the same time, ultimately, it giving the plant strength. So after that, early plant having the very flexible stems because of the primary cell walls. After the cells grow to the trees, the stem is very mechanical strength because of the secondary cell walls. So the primary cells, after primary cell walls, inside of the primary cell walls, the secondary walls formed. The secondary walls is very rigid. Ultimately, the secondary walls formed, the plants is very strengthened. So it provides strength to the plants. It is not found in the all cell types. The secondary walls is not we can see all the cells, just the matured cells, particular cells only. So it consists of three layers known as S1, S2, S3. The S1 layer is the outer layer, the S2 layer is the middle layer, the S3 layer is the inner layer. So the S1 layer is attached to the primary cell wall. So the S3 layer is the inside, it attached to the plasma membrane or tertiary cell wall. It is compound of cellulose, hemicellulose and lignin. So if we can see the secondary wall along with cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin also present. Lignin is a carbohydrate compound. It gives the more strength to cell wall. So that is the lignin is the very toughest compound, very strength compound. So you can see this the picture, what is the layer. So the black lines are the medulla lamella, this one is the, after that the zigzag boxes type is you can the primary cell walls, then primary cell walls S1, S2, S3, the secondary cell wall layers. So this picture is the structure having medulla lamella, primary cell wall, secondary cell wall. So tertiary cell wall. So oftenly we can see some cells, tertiary cell wall also present. Tertiary cell walls deposit in few cells. It is considered to be dry residue of protoplast. So after the cell turns living cell to the dead cell, the protoplasm attached to the secondary cell wall, it considered to the tertiary cell wall. So beside the cellulose and hemicellulose, xylan is also present. So in tertiary cell wall, mainly composed with along with cellulose and semicellulose, xylan also present in the tertiary cell wall. Plasmodesmata. What is the plasmodesmata? Plasmodesmata are protoplasmic strands, protoplasmic thread-like structures of protoplasm. So it called protoplasmic strands that connects one protoplasm of the cells to another protoplasm of the cells along the cell wall. Cell wall have some small pores or pits. Through the pits, the plasmodesmata connected one cell protoplasm to another cell protoplasm. The connecting links help in the intercellular transport. Mostly the plasmodesmata diameter is the 40 to 50 nanometer. Here you observe this is one cell, another one the cell. The yellow color is the protoplasm. The green color is the cell wall. So the yellow color protoplasm thread-like structure connected one cell to the another cells through invade of a pit between the two cells. The cell wall contain pits. Along with the pit, the protoplasm like thread-like structure connected one cell protoplasm to other cell protoplasm. Composition of cell wall. So what is the chemical composition of cell wall? The cell wall is mainly composed of carbohydrate compounds. The major components of the cell wall are cellulose, pectin, hemicellulose, protein and phenolics, some lipids. Cellulose. It provides shape and strength to the cell wall. It composes 20 to 30% of the dry weight of the primary wall. So mostly the cell wall is compounded with carbohydrate. Total primary cell wall dry weight, it is present in 20 to 30% and accounts of 40 to 90% of the dry weight of secondary wall. So the primary wall dry weight 20 to 30% of the cellulose. At the same time, the secondary cell wall dry weight mostly 40 to 90% of the cellulose. The next compound is the pectin. They are a group of polysaccharide which are rich in galacturonic acid, ramenose, arbinose and galactose. So pectins are present in high concentrations in the middle lamella where the pre-assemblies serve the function of cementing adjoining cell together. Pectins mostly high concentration in the middle lamella, low concentration in the primary and secondary wall. These pectins use as cement. It is attached tightly attached to various cells primary cell walls. So this is the pectin. Next one is the hemicellulose. These are the matrix polysaccharide built up of a variety of different sugars. They differ in different species and in the different cell types. So hemicellulose main serve as a matrix of the cell wall. So in the matrix, the cellulose fibrils are packed with one fibril to other fibril and form a strong cell wall. So next, Xylon. It typically makes up roughly 5% of primary cell wall and 20% of the secondary wall in dicots. So mostly Xylons are present in the 5% of primary cell wall but 20% of the secondary wall in dicots. The hemicellulose polysaccharide is linked with xylose and arabinose. The fourth one is the proteins. Different varieties of proteins are present in the cell wall, most which are linked with carbohydrate forming glycoproteins. So the proteins attached with the carbohydrates called glycoprotein. In the cell wall, the proteins called glycoprotein because the proteins attached with carbohydrate molecule. That's why we call glycoprotein. The cell wall glycoprotein extension contains an unusual amino acid hydroxyproline about 40%, which are generally absent from the protoplast extension are present in the primary cell walls of the dicots, making up to 10% of the cell wall. So these are the amino acid hydroxyproline which is absent from the protoplast extension. So amylohydroperoxine is mainly present in the primary cell wall of dicots. So making up 1 to 10% of the wall. Total dicot wall 10% low, 1 by 10% the hydroxyproline is present. Difference between the primary and secondary cell wall. You can see this table, the main difference between the primary and secondary wall. The first one is the first column is the features, second column is the primary wall, third one is the secondary cell wall. So you can see the first row, occurrence, primary cell wall, it all the plant cell. We can see all the plant cell possess the primary cell wall. So at the same time, secondary cell wall, it only mature and non-dividing cells. So this is the main difference between the primary cell wall and the secondary cell wall. Primary cell is the present all plant cells, but secondary cell wall presents matured cells, at the same time non-dividing cell. One goes to non-dividing, it is treated as matured cell. The second character, position. So primary cell wall inner to middle lamella. Where is the primary cell wall? It is the inner layer of the middle lamella. At the same time, the position of secondary wall is the inner layer of primary cell wall. So primary cell wall is the inner of the middle lamella. Secondary cell wall is the inner of the primary cell wall. This is the position of the primary cell wall, secondary cell wall. Next, third feature is the nature. The primary cell wall have elastic nature, at the same time thin. At the same time thin. It look thin. The secondary cell wall has an elastic or rigid or mechanical strength, having very thick. So the primary wall is very thin, at the same time secondary wall is very thick. Next character, nature of growth. Intrinsic exceptional growth కనబడుతూ ఉంటుంది. We can see intrinsic optional ఇది exceptional growth we can see. Pits. The pits are absent in primary cell wall. The pits are present in the secondary cell wall. Pits are two types. One is the simple, second one is the border pits. We can discuss next topic, the pits. Next, additional material. Additional material absent in the primary cell wall. The additional material present in the secondary wall, that is lignin, suberin, cutin. So lignin present in xylem, suberin present in the cork cells, cutin present in the cuticle. So amount of cellulose. The cellulose amount very low in primary cell wall, very high in secondary cell wall. At the same time, extensibility present in the primary cell wall, generally absent in the secondary cell wall. Arrangement of fibrils. The arrangement of fibrils in primary cell wall is wavy and loosely arrangement. The fibrils is very loosely arrangement. That's why the growth of cell is very easily in the early cells. At the same time, the mature cells are absent in growth, at the same time that have mechanical strength. That's why the fibrils are very closely, straight manner, parallel arranged. At the 10th feature, hydration. More hydration, 60% hydration in the primary cell wall. But in secondary cell wall, 30 to 40% hydration is there in the secondary cell. What is the main functions of the cell wall? So number one, they determine the morphology, growth and development of plant cells. The first one, morphology. The cell wall gives the cell shape and also determine growth. So it is useful of the morphology and growth. So second one, they protect the protoplasm from invasion by viral, bacterial and fungal pathogens. Because of the cell wall, most of the pathogens are not entered inside of the cell, because the cell wall have a mechanical strength protective layer of the plant cells. They permits only useful material inside of the cell. They are rigid structure and this help the plant in withstanding the gravitational forces. So the cell wall used for the plant withstanding the gravitational force. So the plant shows growing at the straightly with the help of primary cell wall, mainly secondary wall strength. They are involved in the transport of material and metabolites into the out of the cell. So the cell wall used in the transport inside to outside, outside to inside. They witnessed the turgor pressure which develops within the cell due to the high osmotic pressures. When high osmotic pressures, the high amount of water entered into the cell, so the plant cell wall shows turgor pressures. The turgor pressures allow to the over amount of the water inside the cell. So this is the plant cell. Thank you very much, students. Thank you.